Vibra. Today our special guest for second time is Gregg Braden. Gregg, thank you very much for being here with us in Sube la Vibra.
Oh, Elizabeth, it's so good to be back with you. And I want to say thank you for inviting me back. And I want to say hello and welcome to our community. Thank you for tuning in today.
It is amazing to have you here, Gregg, because your videos are in the first position. Some of your videos have 197,000 views, incredible. And then the most funny is that in English, some of your videos have more than 40,000 views. So thank you very much for your work, for this amazing work that you are doing, that the people are looking for, for the truth. And this is very important.
I think so, Elizabeth. It also tells me that our community is not about language. It is about family. We are one global family, some English, some Spanish, some other languages, but we are a community. And I think as a community, we're looking for truth. We are looking to understand what's happening in the world, what's happening in our lives, and how to make our lives better, how to become better people to create a better world. And I think that's what those numbers are telling us. So thank you for making that happen. And I'm going to follow your lead. Whatever you would like to talk about today, I'm happy to talk about today.
I think it will be good if you can cover a little bit about yourself. And in the first interview, in the last part of the interview, you were talking about that there is something that appears 200,000 years before, and you were explaining a little bit about that.
Well, sure. This has to do, first, I'm just going to say once again, welcome to our viewers. And if you are not familiar with me and my work, I am a scientist. I'm a degreed geologist, an earth scientist, with a strong background in the life sciences. So molecular biology, invertebrate paleontology, vertebrate paleontology, and math, physics, computer science. And all of that works to help me stay current with the publications and the new discoveries in science. And Elizabeth, many of those discoveries are not being shared in the mainstream. So you will not see the discovery on CNN or on the History Channel. You're not seeing it in the magazines at the airport. Yet it is new science that is changing the way that we've been taught to think about ourselves. And this is why I think these discoveries are so important, because we live our lives, we solve our problems, we heal our bodies, we choose our relationships, we choose our policies, our laws, our elections. They're all based upon the way that we have been taught to think about ourselves. And we have been taught in the modern world that humans emerged from a process that is called random mutations. So that we are the product of a long process of what are called random mutations, accidents of biology, is what some people call them. But here's where this is important. We've been taught that competition and conflict is what led us to our success as the human species, that competition with other forms of life, we won the competition, and that competition and conflict are the fundamental rules of nature. This is what we have been taught. Now, young people, when they come to my programs, I have millennials in the audience, and the millennials say, okay, Gregg, these ideas were presented in 1859 by Charles Darwin in his book that is called The Origin of Species. So they say these ideas, random mutations, that nature is based upon competition and conflict. They were presented in 1859. What difference could they possibly make in our modern world today? We have high technology and the internet, and we send people into space. What difference could these ideas make? And And it's a really good question, and they are surprised at the answer. So here's the answer. In the late 1800s and early 1900s is when the foundation of our society was being put together. So in the late 1800s, Darwin's ideas of competition and conflict and struggle and scarcity were very, very popular, and they are embedded into our society that we have today. The corporate structure, corporations are based upon the ideas of competition, conflict, and scarcity. The economic system that is failing is based upon competition and conflict. The way that we solve our problems between nations, but the way we solve our problems in our own family, subconsciously, we will often use these ideas of competition and conflict to solve our problems. So although they are old ideas, they are still having an effect in our lives today. New discoveries based upon the best science of the modern world are now telling us that those old ideas are not correct, that the fundamental law of nature is cooperation, not competition, that this fundamental law of the natural world for all forms of life, that it is based upon cooperation and what biologists call mutual aid. Now, I want to be very clear. This does not deny the fact that we see competition. We certainly see competition in the animal kingdom. We see it with humans. But what it tells us is that the more competition and conflict that we see in the world, it tells us how far we have strayed from the truest nature, the deepest truth of natural laws. And if we want to solve our problems in ways that are sustainable, that honor all people and all life, that if we look to nature and cooperation, it's going to give us the guidelines. So this is one of the discoveries. To me, it changes everything, but it's not being shared in the mainstream media or in the mainstream documentaries. So that's one idea. The second idea that you mentioned, Charles Darwin said that we are the product of an evolutionary process, and that we have gone from simple forms of life to the very complex forms of life we have now. The problem is that the new science no longer supports that idea. Now, some of our viewers may remember there was a movie that was called Jurassic Park. That the first Jurassic Park is the good one, the very first one. And in that movie, it was science fiction at the time. In the movie, the scientists were able to pull the DNA, extract the DNA from the fossils of ancient forms of life. And at that time, it was science fiction. Now it is no longer science fiction. Today, our scientists can extract the DNA from the fossilized remains of the forms of life that we used to believe were our ancestors, who we descended from. And when they compare our modern DNA today to those ancient forms of life, there's a problem. Because what we find is, although we are related, we did not necessarily descend from those forms of life. So for example, we've all heard of Neanderthal. Neanderthal, we used to think, we were taught, we were in school, that we descended from Neanderthal. Well, now we look at Neanderthal DNA, and we look at our DNA, and we find that there's not enough common DNA. We did not descend from Neanderthal. We actually shared the earth with them. We interbred. They said we probably had Neanderthal boyfriends and girlfriends. And that's why today, if someone has their blood tested, so they go through Ancestry.com or 23andme.com or something like that, people will say, they'll say, look, I have Neanderthal DNA. And that's true, because there was interbreeding, but we shared the earth with Neanderthal. We could not have descended from Neanderthal.